from the Signature Bank Studios.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. If you understand the Catholic Church to be one of the great forces for good in human history, which I do, its failings notwithstanding, then it becomes important who the next pope is, who the next head of the church is. 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide. And truly, when you think about it, I mean, I understand the D.C. press corps and its foreign compliments focus strictly on the negatives of the church, and they deserve coverage, to be sure. The sex abuse scandal, for example. But what the Catholic Church has done in the areas of K through 12 education and post-secondary education, actually, healthcare, charity the world over, writ large, that deserves some notice as well. It's a critically important institution to Western civilization. It's not and I'm not saying that to the exclusion of other faith traditions. I'm just saying that of the church in and of itself. So the Pope matters. It certainly mattered when it was Pope John Paul II and the moral authority he brought to the fight against godless communism, totalitarianism generally. So can we get a pope like John Paul II again? Well, let's have this discussion with George Weigel, who's the author of Witness to Hope, that biography of John Paul II, and a distinguished senior fellow of the Ethics and Public Policy Center. George, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice to be with you. Greetings from Rome.
Oh, and you were an attendant to Pope Francis's funeral service?
Yes, I was actually commenting on that on MSNBC.
And, I mean, give us your first-person perspective.
Well, it was a moving experience. I mean, it was an experience of the universality of the church, who had people literally from all over the world, Catholic leaders from all over the world. And as I said on the broadcast, we talk a lot about global community or the world community. That was the world community, and it was brought together by a religious service. And the fact that there were 160 representatives of various nations there struck me as an interesting sign that, as you said in your opening remarks, the Catholic Church really does mean something in the 21st century to a very, very many people. So that was a good reminder. Other interesting bits about the funeral was much smaller than John Paul II, perhaps 1/5 as many people as were here in 2005. I thought it was very interesting that Ukraine saw fit to send its president, Vladimir Zelensky, while Russia only managed to send a very low-ranking minister of culture who really counts for nothing in the Putin regime. So that was a striking contrast. The meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky before the funeral mass, could have important consequences. So it was an interesting day all around.
Well, what was the Pope's last message to the people on that Easter?
Yeah, it was that Jesus Christ is risen, and that is the source of our hope. It was a profoundly religious message, and an entirely appropriate one for a man who would die during what we call the octave of Easter. I mean, Easter for Catholics is not a day, it's a week.
Right.
So he actually died, we call it Easter Monday, but it's the continuing celebration of Easter. So what the Christ-centeredness of his pontificate was there at the beginning. And it was there at the end.
And now comes the conclave. And, give us some perspective on the conclave, because, of course, it gets, including with this most recent terrible movie about a conclave.
Horrible.
It gets, it gets a lot of dramatization, melodramatization is probably a better word, and conspiracy theories and all sorts of things. But anyway, your description of what the conclave is and isn't, and how we should expect it to proceed.
Well, one of the questions people ask is, why is this such a secret process? To which my answer is, that is to prevent external forces, secular forces, from interfering with the selection of the next Bishop of Rome and head of the Catholic Church. That's why the conclave system was invented 800 or 900 years ago, and it served the Church well since then. This will be the most diverse group of cardinal electors ever. It'll also be the largest group of cardinal electors ever, 134, we think. There are some men who are ill, and we'll see whether they make it here. The conclave, it was just decided today, a few hours ago, will open on May 7th, which means there will be the Mass for the election of the Roman Pontiff that morning, and then the conclave will be locked up that afternoon. There will be a first ballot, and then we'll see how long it takes for them to reach a two-thirds consensus, which is required for the election of the Pope in the days after that. There will be votes in the morning and in the afternoon each day until that two-thirds consensus is reached.
Who are some of the front runners? Do you have any names?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of media chatter about who the front runners are, and the Italian press has a tendency to elect the Pope before the conclave opens, and it's always the wrong guy.
So who are they picking? Who are they choosing?
They are choosing Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State of the Holy See, and he will certainly be a candidate. There's no question about that. Cardinal Peter Erdo of Budapest is likely to be a strong candidate. There are others who get talked about that I don't think really have much of a chance. Cardinal Tagle from the Philippines, Cardinal Zuppi from Bologna here in Italy. A very interesting candidate, it seems to me, would be Cardinal Eijk of the Netherlands, who is actually growing the Catholic Church in a very secularized part of Europe. Same could be said for Cardinal Arborelius of Stockholm, Sweden, first Catholic cardinal in Sweden since the 16th century Reformation, who's also growing the church in a very, very secular part of the world. So we'll see what happens.
Now, are there voter ID laws enforced? Because, we got Cardinal Supich there, and we don't want any Chicago ballot stuffing going on. On a serious note, so, forgetting the names for a second, because the names are going to be unfamiliar to most people, but the profile of the next pope, to bridge this dividing line in the church between those who adopted Vatican II and those who did not in their hearts and minds. I mean,
I don't think that's the dividing line, Dan. I think the dividing line, as I put it in the Wall Street Journal this past Saturday, is between the parts of the living parts of the world church, which are those that embrace Catholicism in full, and the dying parts of the world church, which are still trying to make the failed project that I have called for 20-some years Catholic Light work. Catholic Light, pardon the Coca-Cola imagery here, Catholic Light always leads to Catholic Zero. That's the experience of the church throughout the world. So that's really the dividing line. And then, of course, there are many ways to to think about what it means to embrace Catholicism in full. But no one in this 21st century world of ambiguity and relativism is really interested in the church of maybe, we might call it. People want clarity. People respond to conviction, and conviction lived out, as you indicated in your opening remarks, in an enormous amount of service all over the world. So that's kind of the real dividing line here.
Sorry to interrupt, but is that what we're seeing when you talked about the cardinals in the Netherlands and in Sweden? Is that what we're seeing in terms of a resurgence of Catholicism in those countries?
But that's also true of what we're seeing in the United States. I mean, many dioceses in the United States this year experienced the largest number of converts coming into the church in years. And those people are not joining the church of maybe. They're joining, they want to belong to something that has a secure understanding of what it is and what its boundaries are.
I wonder, too, just because of the controversies picked up by the Western press and accentuated or exacerbated, depending on your perspective, when, for example, Pope Francis would wade into the politics of climate change or labor economics. I wonder if there is a disposition to not have somebody now do that from the more free market side, Pope Robert Sirico, not that, but somebody who speaks, in a way about those topics that comes across as less partisan.
I saw a story, can't remember exactly where, a few days ago that said that Pope Francis had given over 300 interviews in 12 years. I think there's a considerable agreement that that's just too much. The Pope is not an oracle. You know, he's not the Oracle of Delphi in a white cassock. And that there are things about which the Pope may have an opinion personally, but he has no particular expertise in. So I think in the future we will probably see a bit more reticence to comment on this, that, and the other issue in the public sphere, and to perhaps concentrate a bit more on growing the church.
George Weigel is the author of Witness to Hope, the biography of John Paul II, and a distinguished senior fellow of the Ethics and Public Policy Center. George, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Goodbye, Chicago.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Thank you.
For more,
Bye.
you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, Amy Jacobson here. With the crime we're seeing in Illinois, I know how important it is to keep my home and my family safe. That's why I chose Goldilocks for my home security. One of their awesome technicians just came over and gave me a free assessment of my home. They found vulnerability